in your opinion, first of all, is the Earth warming?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Is it warming at an alarming rate?
Depends on how you define alarming. It is warming at a rate which is cause for concern. Alarming depends on whether we're starting to talk about things like ecosystems or humanity or, so it depends. It's a value judgment, alarming.
Okay, so if you want to say...
Not for humanity, I don't think it's alarming yet.
Okay, it's not alarming yet. Are we on an inevitable train where we're going to get to a stage of alarm?
From what we have as state-of-the-art knowledge, there's no question that if the long-lived greenhouse gases, if their emissions keep on going up, yes, they're going to keep warming, with all the accompanying consequences, sea level rise and so on.
So, what should be done?
I'm not a policy person. I'm a science person, and but obviously what science is doing is giving a range of information about various possibilities, effects on various variables, not just surface temperature, but atmospheric temperatures, precipitation, rainfall, snowfall, sea level rise, ice sheets, sea level, sea ice. So there's a range of information that science is providing, which would help to, argue for what's the best strategy for having the climate to be sustainable. And there's a range of policy options, and like I said, I'm not a policy expert, so I don't know.
Do you have an opinion, or that you like to venture? Okay.
No, I think human beings will have to do what is best for the society as a whole. So I'm sure that is going to involve some, mitigation issues. It'll involve some adaptation issues. It'll involve some issues where you're looking for technology to address the problem. So I see all these factors coming into play, not just one of them, but really all of them coming into play. But that's the way it's going to happen.
One thing I've noticed for someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight, who's just trying to figure out, where we should go from here, is that whenever you talk about climate change, you have people on the right, people on the left, and it's almost goes out of the realm of science into the realm of religion almost, where if someone says, I definitely believe this, or I definitely don't believe this, they're labeled a heretic. Is that disconcerting for you?
It does sometimes rise to disconcerting levels. I think a certain amount of disagreement, certain amount of inquiry, skepticism, polite discourse, polite disagreements, debates are necessary and are healthy for the science. But sometimes it does rise to levels where it becomes too shrill, too much out of focus, too much lacking in substance, and that's when it's detrimental. It actually impedes the science rather than getting more knowledge on the table.
So, is there a fault line even within this conference among scientists who believe that some mitigation should be addressed, and those that don't or don't have an opinion?
I don't know, if there are fault lines. There certainly are issues which are kind of being taken only at the surface level and not being probed into. And I think that's a disservice when some subjects are not probed enough, or when there are questions which kind of are being again asked after 10 years or 20 years, when some of them have been actually resolved. So those kind of things should not be happening. Because that's retrograding science rather than advancing science. So I would think that there are some fault lines to be avoided. But I think the important thing there is, in a meeting like this, everyone is getting only 20 minutes to talk, less if you take the question period. So that's obviously not enough time to settle things. And so one cannot expect to settle things or answer every question here. But what I hope would happen is that they are then taken up later on at different forums. And above all, people should write papers. Whether it's a skepticism or denial or disagreement or acceptance, I think that's the way to go, writing papers in peer-reviewed journals and then letting it get exposed, which I think there's less of. There's sometimes too much of shrill and not enough. What I mean by substance is where people actually not only speak up but also write papers. That would be very healthy.
10 days ago, Fred Muller came out with an article on the op-ed page of the Wall Street Journal, caused a lot of stir. What are your thoughts?
This is the Berkeley?
Right, yes. Yeah. Fred Muller from the Berkeley Earth.
I didn't read the article. I've certainly read excerpts of it, so I don't ever pass judgment on excerpts. But I think the Berkeley the team project was a very interesting foray into trying to revisit a problem. And that's, I think, good. I mean, I think it should be done. I mean, that's what we do in not just observations, even in calculations. Keep revisiting it so that you catch any obvious errors which are missed out, but which are obvious ones. And so it's actually very nice that this project went through its inquiring phase and landed with its conclusions the way it did. And so I don't know what else the Wall Street Journal article said, but certainly I welcome it.
Last question for you: What advice would you give to the average American who, again, doesn't have a dog in the fight, but is just trying to find out which way to go?
I think the first thing to avoid is the question of do you believe in global warming. I think that's really a question that does a lot of disservice. It gets it to the level of two college football teams and saying which one do you think will win. And that's maybe a fine analogy in sport, and again, maybe it is not a fine analogy even there. But I think the issue should be more of getting more education and awareness. And I don't mean education in a very formal science sense, but much like, we used to inquire about the missions, the spacecraft missions, what they were doing. And there was an effort on both sides to reach out, to get educated, and to actually promulgate the awareness. I think that enough of that is not happening. So I would say to the average American that I think you should get some knowledge, but that's not coming from like a scientist saying in a highbrow sense that learn something. But I think more from a view towards learning about something that could very well affect their lives in the future. And above all, I would say that I'm looking at the next generation of students and scientists. And to the average American, I would also say, if they are old enough to have children, or if they are the children of the next generation, that it's really important to dig into the subject and learn something about it before you answer questions and before you answer polls. Because I think on a subject like this, where there is there's sort of so much of complexity, that you have to spend some time to get aware, to be aware about it. But I also blame people like myself and other people of this generation who are giving talks here, that we haven't done enough to actually sow the seeds of desire to learn about these things. I think that's very important. The inquisitiveness and curiosity factors are much more important than coming out with a sort of mindset that I believe in this or I don't believe in this. Because if at the end of some process, if somebody really truly doesn't believe in it, then they should be prepared to offer substantive things. Same goes on the other side. If you believe in it, after some learning process, you should be able to defend it. If you find you don't have enough substance to defend it, it means you haven't dug in deep enough. And then, it's useless to become shrill about it, because then, without substance, it's just difficult to do and to contribute anything meaningful to the national debate on this.
That is a most interesting.
Dr. Ramaswamy, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.